Self-confidence is the foundation of every success story. It is the power that allows you to stand tall even when the world doubts you. When you believe in yourself, challenges turn into opportunities and failures become lessons. Confidence is not about being fearless, but about facing fear with courage. So stay with us till the end, because this story could be the turning point you have been waiting for. Ethan had always carried big dreams in his heart, but whenever the moment came to act, his courage seemed to vanish. At school, he avoided raising his hand even when he knew the answer, afraid that others might laugh if he was wrong. At work, he quietly let opportunities pass, watching others step forward while he stayed behind in silence. His mind was like a battlefield where doubt always won the war, whispering to him, "You are not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough." The truth was, Ethan had the skills, but he lacked the confidence to use them. Every failure, no matter how small, became proof in his mind that he was destined to stay ordinary. Even his friends noticed how he avoided the spotlight, hiding behind the success of others. At night, he would lie awake, replaying moments where he could have spoken, where he could have acted, but didn't. Regret became his constant companion, and his dreams began to feel like illusions slipping further away each day. Deep inside, he wondered why some people seemed fearless while he struggled with even the simplest challenges. The answer, though hidden from him at that time, was simple: those who rose higher were not free from fear, they had simply chosen to believe in themselves despite it. But Ethan had not yet discovered that truth. For him, life was a cycle of hesitation, missed chances, and silent longing. What he didn't realize was that this very struggle was shaping the beginning of his journey. Behind his doubts was an untapped strength waiting to be unleashed, and though he couldn't see it yet, the greatest turning point of his life was closer than he ever imagined. One morning, after yet another sleepless night filled with regret, Ethan decided something had to change. He was tired of watching life slip through his fingers while others moved forward. Standing in front of the mirror, he stared at his reflection and for the first time whispered the words, "I can." It felt strange, almost unbelievable, but he kept repeating it until it sounded less like a lie and more like a possibility. That week at work, a small opportunity came. His manager asked if anyone wanted to present a short idea to the team. Normally, Ethan would have shrunk back into silence, but his heart told him this was his moment. With shaky hands and a voice that trembled at first, he volunteered. As he spoke, he stumbled over a few words, but he kept going, refusing to let fear silence him. When he finished, something unexpected happened. The team applauded. It wasn't a perfect presentation, but it was real, and it was his. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a spark of pride. He realized that confidence wasn't about being flawless, it was about daring to try. That small step gave him a new perspective. Success doesn't come all at once, it comes in tiny, consistent acts of courage. Each time he chose to face his fear, he grew stronger. Ethan began to notice that the more he believed in himself, the less power his doubts had over him. The walls of hesitation that had held him captive for so long were beginning to crack, and through them, he could finally see a glimpse of the life he was meant to live. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan began to test himself in ways he never thought possible. Each new challenge seemed bigger than the last, but he no longer backed away. When his company assigned him to lead a small project, he felt the old fear creeping in, the fear of making mistakes, of being judged, of failing publicly. But instead of letting it paralyze him, he reminded himself of the lesson he had learned: confidence is built by action, not by waiting for perfection. The project was not easy. He faced setbacks, miscommunications, and even criticism from colleagues who doubted his abilities. At times, he wanted to retreat into his old shell, but he forced himself to keep moving forward. Each mistake became a teacher, showing him how to improve rather than proving he wasn't good enough. Ethan began to notice something remarkable: people were starting to respect him, not because he was flawless, but because he showed resilience. His willingness to rise after every fall inspired others to trust him. For the first time, Ethan realized that failure was not his enemy, it was his stepping stone. With each challenge, his voice grew steadier, his decisions more confident, and his belief in himself stronger. The boy who once avoided raising his hand now stood tall, willing to face whatever came his way. Slowly, Ethan was transforming, not just in the eyes of others, but in his own. He had unlocked a power within that no setback could take away, the power of self-belief. And though he still had a long way to go, one thing was clear, he was no longer the prisoner of his doubts, but the warrior of his own destiny. Years passed, and Ethan's journey of growth continued to shape him into a completely different person than the shy, hesitant boy he once was. The man who used to hide from opportunities was now the one people looked up to for courage and guidance. One day, he was invited to deliver a keynote speech at a leadership conference. Standing backstage, Ethan felt a wave of nerves wash over him, but instead of fear consuming him, he welcomed it as a reminder of how far he had come. As he walked onto the stage and looked at the thousands of faces waiting for his words, he took a deep breath and began to speak, not from a script, but from his heart. He shared his story of self-doubt, his struggles, and the countless moments when he almost gave up. But more importantly, he revealed the turning point, the moment he chose to believe in himself, even when no one else did. The audience listened in silence, captivated by his honesty and vulnerability. As he spoke about how confidence is not about never failing but about rising every time you fall, many nodded with tears in their eyes, recognizing their own battles in his words. By the time he finished, the room erupted in applause, not just for his speech but for the authenticity of his journey. That day, Ethan realized the truth he had been searching for all along: self-confidence was more than a trait, it was his greatest superpower. It had turned his fear into courage, his failures into lessons, and his dreams into reality. He finally understood that success is not reserved for the most talented or the most gifted, but for those who dare to believe in themselves when no one else will. From that day forward, Ethan dedicated his life to reminding others of the same truth, that the pathway to success is not found in the approval of the world, but in the quiet, powerful choice to trust your own strength. And as he stepped down from that stage, he knew his journey had come full circle. The boy who once doubted himself had become a man who inspired others to discover their own superpower, self-confidence.